Shalom uvracha. Mishneh Torah, Rambam, Hilchot Deot, Perek Sheni, Halacha Yod Aleph, or Wow, depending on your edition. In this Perek, Rambam has been discussing what we normally nowadays refer to as midot, various aspects of what our internal software, so to speak, which determines how we conduct ourselves in the world, and that it is necessary frequently to address issues of this type, because a person's midot are not properly calibrated, and a person's behavior can frequently not be what it should be. And that is why Rambam began this perek by saying that just as there are physiological maladies which lead to various illnesses and issues, in the same way we have, as the same way that the guf, the body, can be dysfunctional, so can the nefesh. So now in Halacha Yod Aleph, or Halacha Wa, Rambam continues with this thing, and he states, Asur le'adam lanhig asmo b'divrei halakof u'fitui. The words halakof u'fitui mean essentially to mislead people in the manner in which we speak, the way we express ourselves. Anything that is designed to represent anything other than that which we truly feel and believe, that is already a form of lying. So halakof means to speak literally in a smooth, halak, smooth, that is to say, a manner calculated to cause people to believe something which is not true, that we have some interest in them thinking so. Pitui literally is to entice, but here the general meaning is to, what we might call in colloquial English, to sweet talk people. A person must not say one thing with his mouth, but think something else in his heart. That which is inside, tocho, is what is apparent externally as well. Tocho kivaro. V'ha'inyan shebalev hu adadar shebapeh. V'afilu lighnov da'at habriyot. V'asur lighnov da'at habriyot. V'afilu da'at hagoy. So this admonition applies in general to all walks of life, to all areas of endeavor, to be honest, not to mislead, not to give a false impression. And it has particular relevance to commerce. That is what Rambam says here in the last statement. All manner of marketing techniques, how to sell something to someone in a less than completely honest manner, That is called lignov da'at habriot, to literally to steal their mind. That is to say, to present them with a reality, with a perception of reality which is not correct. And the halakha is wa'afilu da'at hagoy. It is asur to do this also with regards to a non-Jew, to mislead and to deceive for whatever purpose. Unless, of course, we're talking about enemies of the Jewish people, or people that we know are evildoers and have evil designs on us or the Jewish people, etc. Then the pasuk states, in other words, with the crooked person, act crookedly. With the dishonest person, be dishonest, because we are not commanded to be naive and to what is referred to in Hebrew as Deot, in English, to be a sucker, to allow yourself to be taken advantage of, to act as if you don't really know what's going on. That we are not commanded to do at all. That is even on the personal level, in one's personal interactions in the world. Kal v'chomer, how much more so when we are talking about the national affairs of the Jewish people as a nation, vis-a-vis other nations, other groups, other entities. There, of course, we have to be more than circumspect in understanding the wiles and the plans of people that we know to be less than righteous. So, for example, to sign an agreement with people with reference to whom it is obvious that they have no intention of abiding by such an agreement, or at least not the moment that it becomes less than convenient for them to do so, then it is the act of a fool to sign agreements with such people. Alternately, if you're talking about an enemy of the Jewish people, who, without any doubt, sorry, just one moment. My microphone is okay. I hope it's okay now. When it comes to the enemies of the Jewish people, we are allowed to deceive and to be less than honest in our dealings with such people. Very well, we continue. So, halakha yodbeth, or continuation of halakha waw, kesad. For example, lo yimkor legoy besar nevela bichlal shehupta. One is not allowed, for example, to sell meat. Let's say you're a butcher, and you have a store where you sell meat in the shuk, in the marketplace. You're not allowed to sell to a non-Jew meat which is actually basar nevela. In other words, the meat of an animal that died of its own for whatever reason. Could be old age, it could be a disease, whatever. And present it as if it is the meat of an animal that was slaughtered. Obviously, the non-Jew is allowed to eat such meat, but nevertheless, most non-Jews would not choose to eat such meat, or certainly not without being aware of it. And if it's edible and it's fresh and what have you, it probably carries a much lower price in the market. So it's not a question here of being machshil, of misleading and causing a person to sin. The sin is yours because you're misleading him, but he is not going to transgress any particular isur by eating this meat, but you are misleading him, and you're cheating him, and that is not allowed. nor can you sell anybody, Jew or non-Jew, a shoe made of the hide, the skin of an animal that died, rather than the hide from an animal that was slaughtered. I am not a great maven when it comes to the manufacture of shoes and hides, etc. But apparently there was a difference. If the skin, the hide was taken from an animal that died or that was slaughtered. Apparently it makes a difference to the quality of the product, the final product. So you may not mislead a person about such a thing. Nor should one invite constantly and even badger a person that they should come and invite them to your home as if you want them to come, when you know very well that for whatever reason he will not come. So what you're doing really is you are presenting yourself as someone who's very generous and very inviting and friendly and hospitable, when in fact you have no intention of doing any of these things, because you know that it will never come to pass. So you are building yourself up. You are projecting an image of yourself which is false. Or to send him, shall we say, foodstuffs or set before him on the table, if he is in your home, things that you know he cannot or will not eat, or he doesn't really want to be there at all. So you put on lay on a tremendous spread on the table, and again you're gaining, as it were, social status, at least with regards to this person, but in fact it's insincere. So any form of insincerity, of lack of forthrightness, is asur. ולא יפתח לו הביו שהוא צריך לפתוח אותן למוכרן, כדי לפתותו שבשביל כבודו פתח. Nor should, if a person is selling wine, shall we say, from barrels, he should not open a barrel of wine and offer to sell it to him or something like that, from a new barrel, which is considered preferable to a barrel that's been opened for a while, when in fact you had to open it anyhow, whether he was there or not, whether he would have been interested in buying or not, in order to lead him to believe that you're doing it in his honor or for his welfare. To here doesn't mean to entice, but here lefatoth means to create the impression. And anything similar to this. A simple example. A simple example nowadays might be when selling a car, for example, not to be honest about the how much the car has traveled, or if it was involved in a traffic accident, or other aspects of the health, so to speak, of the car. It is asur to leave anything unsaid if it's relevant. Even one word of such dishonest interaction is asur. A person has to be honest completely. Amal means wicked, dishonest behavior, and havoth has to do with plotting and deliberately misleading, which activities which lead to something unjust and wrong. We continue. Halakha Zayin or Yod Gimel. Lo yeh adam ba'al sahok wahatha. A person should not be frivolous, constantly laughing, joking, not being someone who's not serious for a moment about anything. Nor should a person live and go through life either depressed or as it were in mourning the whole time. And this would also include being overly cynical and always having negative things to say about everything. This is what the Hachamim instructed us. Sahok qalut rosh marginim la'irwa. Frivolous behavior. It's qalut rosh and a lack of seriousness lead a person marginim la'irwa to immoral behavior in the sexual realm. A person should not therefore engage in such things all the time. Nor should he be depressed, sad. A person should receive other people with whom he comes in contact with a positive disposition, but literally with a pleasant and upbeat disposition, but without being overly frivolous, lightheaded. Person should not allow himself to be or to develop into the kind of person who is a ba'al nefesh rahava, in other words, who's greedy and always wants more. He always needs, nothing is enough, and therefore he's nivhal lahon. Hon is wealth. He's always out for money, always thinking in terms of money. And that is the focus of his life, of his being. Because if a person is so disposed, it affects all aspects of his behavior, all aspects of his perception of the world and in all of his interactions. Money is important and necessary, and can be put to very good use, but it can also be like a kind of virus that it infects all parts of the person's being and colors and taints all aspects of his behavior and his view of the world. Nor should a person be lazy. In other words, it's good to be industrious. It's good to take various aspects of your life, including your livelihood, seriously and work hard, and it's not at all correct to be lazy and unemployed. A person who is generous, ma'at esek v'osek b'Torah. This is, of course, many of the things that we're studying here are based on the statements of the Mishneh and Masechet Deot. So there it also speaks about ma'at esek, to do what is necessary for one's livelihood. V'osek b'Torah, and spend as much time as possible studying Torah. V'otho ha'ma'at shu helko ismahbo, and that which Hashem gives him in this world, to be satisfied and not constantly muttering under his breath that why are things this way and why do I not have more and what have you. وَلَا يَا بَعْلْ قَطَّطَا. The word قَطَّطَا is it's not just argument, it's to be the kind of person who's constantly involved in disharmonious behavior with others. That is to say, always some kind of argument or some kind of in Hebrew we would say riv umadon, always some negative vibrations between you and the other person or other people, which leads to unpleasantness. Nor should one be someone who is constantly looking at what others have and therefore being jealous. And not someone who is constantly seeking to satisfy and always to find more physical pleasures in this world. Nor should a person seek honor and status for himself. Again, that is something that it is necessary that certain people be respected and appreciated for who they are. But if a person's life, if a person's mode of living and thinking and interacting with the world and other people is such that everything is calculated and weighed up in such a manner, how to increase my kavod, my honor, my status, how to increase my value, as it were, in terms of other people, gaining people's respect and being honored by others. That is also a kind of virus, like the Redifat Hamamon, the insatiable chasing after money is similar to the chasing after kavod. It's something which once you are motivated by that, it is never enough. There's never enough money, and there's never enough kavod. And therefore, again, it taints all of one's approach to life, to other people. This is what the Chachamim told us in this regard. That's straight out of the Mishneh, Masechet Deot. That these kinds of behaviors, these kinds of midot, of kina, of jealousy, ta'awa, always thinking in terms of one's physical pleasures, hakavod, and seeking to be honored and respected. What does that mean? Literally removes a person from the world. That means to say, as I just explained now, it colors all of one's personality and all of one's perception of everything. Everything is in such a fashion everything receives is colored in the wrong way, and is also misperceived, therefore, and this will affect your behavior almost every moment of the day throughout your life, and in that way, it removes a person. It derails you from the correct path in life altogether. So this is the rule. Yelech b'midah habenonit. Here the Rambam returns to the concept of being balanced. Yelech b'midah habenonit shebechol de'ah b'de'ah. A person should aim for being balanced and acting in a reasonable and correctly modulated and conceived fashion, not extreme in any way. Yelech b'midah benonit shebechol de'ah b'de'ah ad sheyu kol de'otav, so that all of his midoth mechuwanot ba'imsa'it, so that they are all roughly in the mid-range in terms of every midah, as we discussed previously, that every midah can be viewed as a kind of spectrum. So let's say in terms of kavod, to seek kavod for oneself all the time is despicable and wrong and extremely pernicious. On the other hand, there are situations and there are people who are not allowed to they may not allow themselves to be disrespected because of their position, because of what they represent. An extreme example is the king. The melech cannot be mohel al kavodo. He cannot forgive, as it were, not allow others to disrespect him, because his respect is not his own respect. It is the respect of it reflects on Am Yisrael Kulo, and it acts as a negative force within the Jewish world, within Am Yisrael's national existence. V'hu sheshalomo omer v'chol derachacha yikonu. So the pasuk there states in Mishneh Perek Daled, Pales ma'agal raglecha, which means the word palace in modern Hebrew is what we call in English I forget now the name of the tool that workmen use to see if something. It's called a level, to see if a floor is level, shall we say, right? So that's a palace. A palace is something which shows you if something is perfectly level as it should be. Pales ma'agal raglecha means to consider and measure and regulate your behavior. Ma'agal raglecha literally means the path which your feet follow. The word ma'agal does not mean a circle in this context. In Sefer Mishneh and other places, the word ma'agal is a path. And in fact, in English, it would be the correct translation would be a cart track. In other words, it is the ma'agal, it is the circle, it is the wheel, which is a galgal. When it travels over the same path again and again, it causes a rut. It creates a rut and a track in the earth, correct? And that is called a ma'agal. Ma'agal raglecha. So weigh up and consider and regulate your path, your behavior in general. And then if you are constantly engaged in self-examination, checking yourself all the time to see, am I behaving properly? Did I behave in that situation? Did I behave properly? Did I do the right thing? And if not, maybe you have to do something about that. Perhaps you have to apologize to someone, or at least, at the very least, you should learn from that experience, and next time, hopefully, do something different. So one achieves that by being self-aware. One must be very aware of one's actions, one's attitudes, one's midot, which is not easy for a person to self-examine and self-regulate, but one has to try and do this. Not to allow one's passions or initial inclinations to get the better of him, but to train oneself, as Rambam discussed earlier. Rambam said at the beginning of this parak in Halacha Beth or Gimel, וכיצד היא רפואתה, מי שהוא בעל חמאה, אומרים לו להנהיג עצמו שאם הוכה וכולה לא ירגיש כלל. So if a person has a certain disposition, which is one of the extreme ends of the spectrum, when let's say talking about anger, says Rambam, so that he's always getting angry and responding in an improper fashion, inappropriately, he has to train himself to do the opposite. So he has to go to the other extreme until eventually he reaches the correct point on the spectrum. And so it is with all of the Deot, all of the midot, said Rambam over there. So this can only be achieved by being self-aware, by constantly examining and considering whether I am acting properly, what is motivating me, and why do I see things in a certain way? Is that correct or is it not correct? So one has to be engaged in this kind of activity constantly. And that's the Rambam brings this pasuk, Pales Ma'agal Rav Lecha, that's the beginning of the pasuk. And then if you do so, if you are engaged in this self-examination and you modulate and you regulate your behavior and your thoughts, your inner life, then then it will also manifest itself in the world, and your path in life will be nachon, yikonu, that's like the word nachon, will be properly directed and measured as it should be. Very well. Parak Shalishi. Shema Yomar Adam. A person might say, says Rambam, Ho'il wa hata'wa wa kavod wa chayose bahen derech ra'ahin. Seeing that I understand, I have understood, I have internalized that constantly seeking physical pleasures, ta'wa wa kavod, and honor, and similar things of this nature. Derech ra'ahin. This is a negative and incorrect way to live one's life, and it leads inevitably, inexorably to very negative outcomes. As we said before, again, this is the Lashon of the Mishneh, that this dislodges a person, derails a person from the correct path in life. And that's being removed from the world, as it were. In other words, you are living a life which is simply not correct. Life is not to be lived that way. You should not be such a person. So if a person is living in such a way, then it's almost as if he's not alive. He's not at all where he should be. So again, to take the metaphor of the train, his train has been derailed completely, has gone off on the wrong track. He's going to the wrong destination. So therefore, efrosh mehen biyoter, I will therefore distance myself and remove myself from all such things. Efrosh mehen biyoter ve'athrahek l'sav ha'aharon, I will go all the way to the other extreme. Ad shelo yochal basar, to the point of concluding, I will not eat meat, and I will not drink wine, v'lo yishteh yain, v'lo yisa isha, and I will not marry a woman, v'lo yeshev b'dira na'ah, and I will not live in a pleasant and well-appointed home, v'lo yilbash malbush na'eh, and I will not wear nice and respectable clothing. Ela hasak v'hasamer hakasher v'chayoseh b'hem. I will wear clothing made of sackcloth and very rough, coarse wool. V'chayoseh b'hem. And Rambam, excuse me. And Rambam was familiar with, as we are familiar with these practices in the Christian world. So he says, "Kehon kumra edom," such as various Christian monks. We know about various orders of monks who some of them did not eat meat or did not drink wine. Others wore very coarse, rough clothing, which is very unpleasant and even painful to some extent to wear. That kind of behavior, Rambam says, Gamzo derech ra'ahi. So yes, I've been telling you how you have to distance yourself from various pitfalls and midot, which are unfortunately all too common amongst people. You have to be fully aware of that. You have to struggle against being such a person, living your life in that way. But the correct solution is not to become one of these, live the life of one of these extreme religious orders, where they essentially opt out of life in any normal sense of the word. This is a negative and incorrect path, which is one may not follow. It is asur to follow such a path. Hamahalech, Rambam continues, Hamahalech b'derech zo, nikra halteh, a person who walks such a path in life is called a sinner. Harehu omer, as it says with regards to a nazir, a person who took a nether not to have anything to do with wine, shall we say. V'chiper alo me'asher hata al hanafesh. He is required to bring something, a korban, which has to do with kapara. Why? What did he do wrong? Where's the sin? In the nether, the vow that he took? Amaru hachamim uma im nazir shelo peresh ela min hayayin. This nazir, all he refrained from, and all he took upon himself by way of a nether, not to drink, not to experience, was wine. Sarich kapara, a person who does so is must atone for what he did, because this is not the way of the world, not the Son Hashem. This is not Hashem's will. Hamoner asmo mikol davar, he who distances himself and refrains from multiple aspects of normal human life and existence. Alahat kama v'chama, how much more so is this the case? Perhaps I will share my screen in case that's helpful. You should be able to see Hilchot Deot now, Perek Gimel. Rambam continues. This is now Halacha Gimel, or still Halacha Aleph. Lefichach ציוו חכמים שלא ימנע אדם עצמו אלא מדברים שמנעה התורה בלבד. It is therefore the teaching of the Chachamim that a person not refrain from, we should refrain only from those things that the Torah instructs us to refrain from, not to add all kinds of extra gedarim, all kinds of extra and extreme behaviors. And a person should not get into the habit of making a nether, a vow, or a shavua, an oath that a person to not partake of various things. So the Chachamim stated, "Lo dayecha ma she'asarat Torah ela she'ata osir alecha devarim achirim." This is taken from the Yerushalmi, the statement that is it not sufficient for you that which the Torah has prohibited? Ela she'ata osir alecha devarim achirim. You think that you must come up with extra and additional isurim. This is excuse me. That approach to Jewish existence is incorrect. Rambam continues, and included in this, this also refers to those who are constantly fasting, not eating. This is not a correct path in life. And the Chachamim stated that it is asur for a person to constantly afflict himself in this way. The sagef is to afflict and to cause physical suffering by way of fasting. And with regards to such things, it says in Sefer Kohelet, Al tehi tzadik harbe, do not be overly righteous, as it were. Wal tithakam yoter, and do not be what we call in Yiddish, do not be an oibechuchem, do not be too clever. Lama tishomem, why should you lead such a life where you, which results in negative and painful, negative and harsh existence, which is not the Hashem's intention or will, that people live a life of suffering, live a life of deprivation. That is not healthy. It, of course, is very true that the opposite is also very unhealthy, and it's very easy to fall. It's easier to fall into the opposite trap of excess luxury and constantly being focused on physical, material things. That is a very easy thing, mistake to make and to fall into that trap, especially in the world in which we live today, which is designed not only to supply all human needs, but to create extra needs, things that are unnecessary, and to suggest to people that they need this and they must do that and that they have to experience such and such. The world in which we live today is without question decidedly ill and unbalanced. And we see this. We see this around us. We see how most people in the Western world, which is in affluent societies, have been completely sucked into that mode of living, where it's all about convenience and luxury and decadence. That is also terribly dangerous, and that's of course why many people, such as the Christian monks that Rambam referred to previously, and other sects and religions and groups in the world, that is why some of them reach the conclusion that it is necessary to go to the opposite extreme. But we said also that is also not correct. That is not the Torah's solution. The Torah's solution is to live by the book, literally. Because the Torah leads to a correct balance. I'm willing to... Sorry, go on.
Sorry, please go ahead.
I was just going to say that I'm willing to admit that in the current reality in the Western world, because of the excess of luxury and physical material possessions, and the obsessive focus on these things, it is probably correct to be very aware of that, and constantly being pulling back a little bit from the norms of today, because the norms of today are not actually normal. Very often what is considered the norm is itself beyond what is correct. So it is necessary to be very aware of that, but not to go to the opposite extreme. That is also a mistake, and that is not the Jewish way. Yes, you were going to say.
In the previous halachot, we mentioned that excessively depriving oneself from pleasures of this world, like not drinking wine, is a negative character trait. So I wanted to ask, what's the correct way that one should use wine? How should it be? Or how about other substances that people use, like similar reasonings?
Wine is a perfectly normal and healthy beverage to consume, but we consume it in the correct fashion. To drink too much wine or too much alcohol in general, to be to the point of becoming addicted or dependent upon it, and drinking to inebriation. That is asur. To become drunk according to the Torah at any time is asur. As Rambam writes explicitly, as we shall see. If a person lives according to the balanced Torah approach, a person will drink wine, but not to excess. The problem begins with the excess. So to drink some wine with one's meal is considered perfectly correct. It was a normal, even daily practice amongst the people who were reasonably well off, even in the time of Chazal. It was a normal thing to do, as it was in the Greco-Roman world of that time. It was the standard beverage. Diluted wine was a standard beverage. In other parts of the world, in Europe, in medieval Europe, for example, beer was the standard beverage. It wasn't drinking. Beer was not considered overly indulgent beverage. It was not something you drank only on special occasions. But again, how much do you drink? Do you drink a reasonable small amount, or do you drink to excess? That is the correct approach. The same is true of eating various foodstuffs, or eating in general. One should eat. One should aim to be healthy. One should not overeat. As Rambam now continues and explains. Rambam now says, which is now halacha hey or beth, tzarich adam shechaven kol ma'aso kulam kadeh leda'at Hashem baruch hu bilevad. A person needs to. This is the basic instruction that will lead you on the and place you on the correct path, and keep you balanced and stable and healthy, both physically and hopefully physically if you act correctly. Hopefully, unless it's something beyond your control, as Rambam speaks about later in the next parak. If you follow this basic instruction that Rambam writes now, a person will find it relatively easy lead one's life correctly. Rambam says, "Sarich adam sheyichawen kol ma'asav kulam." One should do all one's actions. One should run one's life kedei le'da'at Hashem baruch hu bilevad, in order to know Hashem. That is to say, to live one's life with an awareness of Hashem, and that should be the central theme of one's life, rather than amassing wealth, as we spoke of before, a person who is nivhal lahon, and rather than engaging constantly in physical pleasures, and because these things, if they become the central theme of one's life, that is very destructive and essentially it derails the person completely. The opposite is to do what Rambam says here. One has to set up one's life and one's attitude and one's approach to everything in such a way that the theme, the central theme, the central motivation of a person's life and lifestyle and choices in life is about living one's life. Le'da'at Hashem. Le'da'at Hashem is to be aware of Hashem's existence at all times. And I think this is the hallmark and the intention of what we refer to as Torah in general, the Torah shebichtav, the Torah sheba'al peh. We are to live our lives with God awareness. The difference between the Jewish people and every other nation on earth, historically and in the present as well, is this very question. Do we live our lives, both as individuals and as a nation, do we live our lives in such a way that we are suffused with, we are completely aware at all times of Hashem's existence, or really can we live many hours of the day, most of the days of our lives, without very much Hashem awareness, God awareness at all? And occasionally we do certain things which connect us or remind us, but much of the time we're really not in that space. We're not in that mindset. So, according to the Torah, you cannot drink a glass of water without being aware of Hashem, because you say if you make a bracha, you want to drink water, that's fine, that's wonderful. You need to drink water. You make a bracha. If you make the bracha seriously, slowly, you think about what you're saying, which is how the bracha is to be said, then by definition you are aware of Hashem constantly. When you drink a glass of water, when you take a bite of something, having dealt with other bodily needs and functions, you have to make a bracha. After having been in the bathroom, whatever it is, you are constantly aware of Hashem. That is the purpose of the various barachot, for example, that we recite. If you look up at the night sky and you see certain astronomical objects, according to the various halachot and statements of Chazal which pertain to these things, you make a bracha. You can be constantly aware of Hashem if you follow these halachot and you are reciting these barachot constantly, because it's impossible to do otherwise. And if you recite them as they should be recited, with real kavanah, then you by definition are going to be a person who is living his life with a very high level of Hashem awareness. And there is no other system, and there is no other Torah, there is no other religious or philosophical system which results in this outcome. Most of humanity, even if they are religious people and they subscribe to a certain religion and they engage in certain spiritual practices, most of the time they are not aware of Hashem's existence. It's not a central and constant facet of their experience and their perception and their life. Rambam continues, and therefore, when one sits or stands or talks or speaks, in other words, whatever one is doing during the day, throughout life, everything that one does should be aimed and directed towards this goal. Kesal, for example, when a person engages in commerce, literally you would say today, to negotiate. In other words, to engage in business activities. Or one is a ba'al malacha, is some kind of artisan who has a tradesman, and you work at your trade in order to be paid for your work. His aim should not be only to make money, to gain and seek wealth. Of course, one has to make money. A plumber cannot work for free, or nor can a lawyer. Anybody, whatever it is that one does, one has to be paid for what one is doing. But a person can engage in all these things because that is the way of the world. That is the gezerah that is mentioned already at the beginning of Sefer Bereshit. You will eat bread by the sweat of your brow. It is not possible to do otherwise. And you require, you have needs. Your family have needs, and these needs must be supplied. So that you will be able to purchase, to obtain those things that are necessary for living one's life. Things to do with eating and drinking, wishivat, bayit, and living in a decent home, and marrying a woman and setting up a family. All these things require material, financial resources, and that is how it should be. And thus, a person's aim when engaging in the various worldly activities which lead to the making of money or supplying such needs and responding to such needs should be done with this in mind, that the aim is to live one's life with Hashem awareness, living a balanced and healthy existence and a way of life. We shall stop here for today. Shalom, shalom.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. We would also like to suggest the following opportunity to our viewers. If you identify with Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with the rabbi in honor or memory of a loved one, if you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.